This was the slaughter known as the First World War. 16 millions died and 21 million were wounded. At the height of the carnage, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, David Lloyd George, had a private chat with the editor of The Guardian, C.P. Scott. If people really knew the truth, said the Prime Minister, the war would be stopped tomorrow. But of course they don't know and can't know. The British public were desperate for real news. More than half the nation flocked to see an official propaganda film, The Battle of the Somme. Cameras were so unusual that young troops would shout, "Hello, Mum," as they marched to the front, and they were heard crying for their mothers as they died on the battlefield. This was almost never reported.
John Pilger set up for his brilliant documentary, the legendary John Pilger. They were all masterpieces, but The War You Don't See. And the music there is from a movie, Oh, What a Lovely War, which depicts an event that took place on December 25th, 1914, where there was a one-day truce, all right? And why do I play those two today? Well, they're kind of germane, and plus we are just a week away from the anniversary, 112-year anniversary of the kickoff of World War I. Randy Credical live on the fly. Reggie Johnson. No dog today, Reggie. It's just too hot and too smoky out there. It's like, I'm in a forest fire in this city and being stuck on the subway for an hour and 20 minutes. Yeah. Well, anyway, we got a great show today. Coming up right now, I'm going to get right into it. There's too much to talk about for me to play any interstitial music at this point in time. And I have quite a wonderful crew with us. And you know them all. You know Dennis Fritz. Dennis Fritz is a long time. He's a retired Air Force Chief Master Sergeant, and he's won awards for his work. He's at the Eisenhower Media Network and the author of the bestseller memoir called Deadly Betrayal. And then, of course, our friend and our colleague from WPFW out of D.C., Garland Nixon News Views. It's on Fridays as well, and he has a great podcast on YouTube, Facebook, and wherever. He was on X as well, but he was banned for 3 days. We'll ask him about that. Are you guys both there?
Yeah.
I am here.
How about you, Dennis?
I am here. If I can be heard, I am here.
All right.
This is Dennis Fritz.
It is Chief Master Sergeant Dennis Fritz. Are you sure that's you and it's not AI?
Well, we never know these days.
All right.
And Garland, great to hear your voice.
Thank you. Always a pleasure here, too.
Yeah, Chief, the first time you were on this show, Garland was the co-host. So he, did you know that?
No, I didn't know. I didn't. But I know I've been on where he's been the co-host with you in the past. Well. And y'all done a great job partnering, along with Reggie, of course. You can't do anything without Reggie.
I appreciate that, Dennis. Thank you very much.
Reggie's watching a replay of the Cape Verde Argentine game right now. So, but there's nothing else going on in the world except for FIFA, right? My good friend from D.C., Garland?
Oh, well, there was Trump's speech last night where we officially transitioned from Russiagate to Chinagate. We officially transitioned from blaming everything that could possibly be blamed on Russia. Putin ate my lunch, turned my heat off, and did everything else. And now Trump said China. Now this is really going to kind of frighten you. China, North Korea, and Iran, and probably Cuba too, have the capacity to interfere with our elections. That's the scariest thing. I mean, if they did, it wouldn't be bad. But the fact that they have the capacity to do it, and he announced that on national TV, that really scares me, Dennis.
Yeah. It does.
Well, not only
Go
that,
ahead, Dennis.
right as we're in the middle of a now more than billions and billions of dollars of war headed to another $1 trillion war.
Right. Yeah. Well, of course, I don't know. Listen, I was able to watch it for about 3 minutes, and that was it. All right. Seriously. I'm not playing clips. You know, I usually will play a clip of it, but I can't stand the guy's voice. I mean, there was nothing there. You know who he reminds me of? Did you ever see that Twilight Zone episode? The kid that sends everybody that he hates into the cornfield?
No.
All right, so he just has these magical powers. Anybody gives him any crap, he just like puts them in the cornfield and they're a cornstalk. But because this guy's, you know, it's just amazing. As you look at this war that's going on that restarted this week, Dennis, Fritz, it must really get under your skin because you wrote the book Deadly Betrayal. We were lied into that war. We were lied in almost every war, but this one must really get under your skin. It's so obvious, and they keep changing the narrative of why we're in it. Dennis. Did we lose Dennis?
No, Dennis is right there. What?
All right. Can you hear us, Dennis?
He was right there.
It was there a second ago.
All right. Is he back on?
Randy?
All right.
There we go.
You
There's
missed,
Dennis.
you missed
Yeah,
that
I don't know
long
what
question.
happens, but I tell you what, that CIA, DIA.
Yeah.
Oh, I know, but you just
They got to make a living too, you know.
you just
no
burned
joke.
up 3 minutes of your time. I have to ground you for a while.
Yeah, but look, let me just get right into it before they disconnect me again.
Did you hear my question?
Your question is, I was getting ready to speak. That's when everything went dead. It actually just signed off, and I quickly.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, but let me just first say this: as you know,
All right.
That ain't working well. Darn it.
Well, go ahead. Why don't you get right into it, Garland?
So well.
Yeah, well, the fact of the matter is this. You know, this is like so many other wars, like pretty much everyone. They lie. There we go. All right,
This
all
is
right.
crazy. This is unbelievable.
Right. Listen, are you using a Mr. Microphone?
No, it's not my mic. It's actually, I'm getting knocked off, literally.
All right.
Wow.
Well,
I'm not
Yeah,
doing
literally.
it, Dennis. That's not me. That's not me.
Okay, all right. But I guess what I'm having to do, Reggie, it tells me, do I want to override? So I've been overriding you. I probably lose you. And so that's the problem. But listen, real quick, let me get into this. But, you know, the 4,500, what got me into this crusade is what we do to our military men and women. But first, before I jump in that, as we enter into Iran again, let me just say this. 'Cause I'm always reminded, and I want to make sure everybody understand this too. I got into this because of the fact of the 4,500 military men and women that died and were killed in Iraq. But at the same time, we must not forget those civilian Iraqis that were killed. We must not forget those that were killed in Gaza. We must not forget those civilians in Lebanon that were killed. Now, getting back to your original question, yeah, it runs me crazy because of the fact if you look at the U.S. Navy, who's providing a large portion of the air campaign, some of them have not seen land in 6 months. Think about what we're doing to their families and them based on another lie. We now know that it was a WMD lie in regards to Iraq, and now we're all going to learn one day. We should know by now, because if Iran truly wanted a nuclear weapon, as we've been saying for decades, they would have had it by now. And I'm on record of saying this, and I'll repeat it again. They would be prudent to get one now because of the fact we need to stop this nonsense of wars based on lies on behalf of Israel. And that's a fact, not opinion, not assumption.
What's the lie? I'm getting some feedback here.
Yeah, me too. I'm hearing that feedback.
Well, could y'all hear me okay, though?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you repeat that whole thing again? I'm kidding. Let me ask you, Garland, what's the lie? Because I want to get into this. We'll get back to Iran. What's the lie they're using right now in regards to a potential, or probably it's a fait accompli as far as I'm concerned, the way it looks, that we're going to invade Cuba?
One of the things you see now is this, and this is the excuse. It's now communism, right? You see this whole anti-communism thing, and it is, first it was Mamdani, and now there's some people who claim to be democratic socialists, whatever, they've won, and so now they've got an excuse. Oh my gosh, communism is the greatest evil, and it must be stopped again. And so basically what we have is the Cold Warriors. The whole concept of the Cold War is back. They went from the Cold War it was communism, and then of course it was terrorism for the whole war on terror. And I guess maybe they're actually officially saying the war on terror is over. We're not going to talk about terrorism anymore. We're going to go back to communism as our excuse, and that will allow us to attack Cuba. But here's what it is. Whatever they need to say. Right. If they need to say it's magic, if they need to say they cast a spell on us and tried to turn us into a frog, it doesn't matter what they're going to do these wars, they're going to do this colonialism crap, and they're going to lie to the American people. And the sad thing about it is, there are Americans here that when the Democrats say Russia is the bane of your existence and they're causing all the problems, there's Americans that'll say, yeah, it sure is Russia. And then when the Republicans come in and they're going, no, that's a mistake. It's China and the communists. There's Americans that'll say, oh, yeah, it's China. We just never learn. There's a certain contingent in this country that just never learns that they're being snookered.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is, we have to, 1 second. What you're looking at, the red baiting that's going on, we saw that at 1919 through 23 or whatever, or beyond, the red baiting, that the first Red Scare. Then you had another Red Scare in the late 40s that lasted like a decade and destroyed a lot of people as a justification as well, going into Iran, going into Guatemala. There were Reds there, whatever. And now we got it again the last since 1993, the big bear scare rather than a red scare. All right, Dennis.
No, I just want to add to some things that Garland said. I want you to listen to what I'm about to say, some of the rationale and excuses that we have for Cuba. First, let me just get this one out of the way first. They're saying that they're a failed state. They say they have human rights violations. Oh, by the way, as we blockade them with human rights violation, the infant mortality they have there, they're saying that, oh, by the way, they have China and Russian spy bases there. This is a biggie. They're harboring Hezbollah and Hamas. They sponsor terrorism, and we're causing destabilization in the Western Hemisphere. Right. Those are the rationale that they're coming up with, Rubio, as we blockade them, killing them.
Right. Well,
inhumanely.
Let me play this for you, both of you here. This is because what you're saying is basically embodied in this 1 minute speech or answer to a question by Stephen Miller.
Well, on Cuba specifically, the most important thing to understand from a national security standpoint is that you have a nation that is 45-minute flight time from our shores that has been a foothold for our adversaries for generations. So when you think about it from a national security standpoint, which is a foundational way to look at your question, you could have an adversary of the United States send, for example, attack drones to Cuba that would then be within very short reach of the United States territory and its citizens. We can't have a foothold for enemies, adversaries, or terrorists that close to American territory, that close to our shores. So you saw the indictment yesterday, of course, of Raul Castro for murdering American citizens. You've seen the sanctions that have been put into place. You've seen the actions the administration has taken. Ultimately, up to Cuba whether or not they make the decision to reform, to have a free country, to be a friend and partner of the United States, or if they choose a different path. And so ultimately, in that way, their fate is in their own hands.
Yeah. So, Garland, you want to unpack that?
Just a pack of, let's repack it. It's a pack of lies. Bottom line. What's interesting is, as the U.S. says, we must get closer and closer to China's border. We must put weapons on Taiwan. We must get on islands as close as we can to China. Oh, by the way, Ukraine, right on Russia's doorstep. Ukraine, how about this? Ukraine has a right to choose their partners. Right, and which would be us, and we're building bases. Really? Well, what about us? Oh, no. In theory, theoretically, they could potentially get something there that they could strike us with from Cuba. So we can't even allow that to happen. It is absurd. It is hypocritical. And here's what it is. It is the empire saying we run the world. We can do anything we want to Russia or China or Iran or anyone else. None of those can do those things to us. The problem with that is this. You must have the kinetic power to enforce that kind of domination. And as Iran, and might I add, the Houthis have proven, we don't have that anymore. So it's nothing but fat talk.
Right. And Dennis, go ahead. Go ahead,
add
Dennis.
what Garland had just said again. Let me remind you, you've heard me say this before, General Smedley Butler, wars of racket. All these wars are based on imperialism and capitalism. If you think about what Garland just mentioned about Russia and China, listen for a moment here. All it is about control, as he stated, as Garland stated. Russia, a lot of oil resources, energy resources, grain, Ukraine, grain, China, cheap labor. You bring that into capitalism, and guess what? We control the world. We control it all. But guess what? China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, they're all resisting. They know what it's about. But yet, when we talk about the American people, we've been led down a bridge of no return in believing some of the rhetoric that we hear that we're the most powerful country in the world, which Iran has proven to be different now. We're trying to prove that we're the richest country in the world. Well, as we still try to gain all the resources of these other countries that we just mentioned. No, we're not the strongest country in the world. It's being proven right now. We just have rich oligarchs, if you will, that has the power and it has the riches. But American people, let me just mention one other thing, Randy. I hate to get in here and get going here. You mentioned about the Eisenhower Media Network. This past Monday, our executive director, General Leach, along with some of us who gave input, we put out a paid ad, I don't know if you're aware of this, in the USA Today, and it's titled America's Dilemma at 250, a budget of the Pentagon by the Congress and for war profiteers. And along with this capitalism and this imperialism, we're also putting money in the pockets of the military industrial complex, and believe it or not, by the way, in Congress as well.
Right. Well, you just mentioned Smedley Butler, and for those people who don't know what he said, the war is a racket, here's a recreation of a little part of that speech, all right? The gist of it is there.
War is a racket. It always has been. It is possibly the oldest, easily the most profitable, surely the most vicious. It is international in scope. It is the only one in which the profits are reckoned in dollars and the losses in lives. There are only two things we should fight for. One is the defense of our homes, and the other is the Bill of Rights. War for any other reason is simply a racket. It may seem odd for me, a military man, to adopt such a comparison. Truthfulness compels me to. I spent 33 years and 4 months in active military service as a member of this country's most agile military force, the Marine Corps. I served in all commissioned ranks from second lieutenant to major general. And during that period, I spent most of my time being a high-class muscle man for big business, for Wall Street, and for the bankers. I suspected I was just part of a racket at the time. Now I am sure of it. I helped make Mexico safe for American oil interests in 1914. I helped make Haiti and Cuba a decent place for the National Citibank boys. I helped in the raping of half a dozen Central American republics for the benefits of Wall Street. I helped purify Nicaragua for the International Banking House of Brown Brothers in 1910. I brought light to the Dominican Republic for American sugar interests in 1916. In China, I helped to see to it that Standard Oil went its way unmolested. Looking back on it, I feel I could have given Al Capone a few tips. The best he could do was operate his racket in 3 districts. I operated on 3 continents.
All right, go ahead. Has anything changed since that speech, Garland?
You know what? The only thing that's changed is that there's more technology involved, and one of the other things that's changed is as we've seen a deterioration of the ability of the country to dominate throughout the world and to dominate in the headlines because people are not watching mainstream media anymore. We've seen an expansion of censorship, an expansion of surveillance, against people internally, because as the narrative falls apart, because empire is a narrative. It's, everybody believes you're the biggest guy on the block, so they don't fight back. Once they start fighting back, you can't fight everybody at the same time. That's what the U.S. is doing. The U.S. is starting to say, okay, people are saying we'll fight back, and we are due imperial overspread. And so what happens is, as the narrative falls apart, internally, the people start suffering. They say, hey, I'm living in my stinking car here, and you're sending another $100 billion out to fight Iran. I don't like living in my car. And by the way, you don't even fix the roads. So I got potholes that I got to drive over in my home. People are unhappy, and the government has to oppress them to shut their mouths. And of course, that makes people even more unhappy, and a cycle of, shall we say, revolution begins.
Yeah, oh my God. Dennis, I know this is something that's dear to your heart. The cause you've been involved with the wounded soldiers, wounded warriors, not the private or what do you call it?
Right.
Whatever they are, but the ones that through the government, wounded warriors. That vote.
You're talking about.
Let me just get to
Wounded Warrior Project.
Right, project. Couple of days ago, there was a vote to suspend or end military, introduced by Thomas Massey, and military aid to Israel, and it, of course, it didn't pass. And somebody came up. I don't know if this figure is right. That more money is given to Israel for armaments than is spent here on veterans in hospitals?
Well, I have not seen those figures, but I will tell you this, is that, if you take into account that already, by law, if you will, $3.8 billion that we give them, and in addition to weapons to support them in their attacks, ready for this, on Gaza, on innocent civilians, the munitions that we give them to attack Lebanon. Well, let me just mention this also. Let me digress for a minute. When you mentioned about Smedley Butler and you say, has anything changed? I want you to think about this for a moment. I think that speech was done in 1935. So I want you to think about that.
Wow.
And so now in regards to Massey, and thank goodness that was voted down, but what we really need to concentrate on is not only our NDAA in regards to the budget that we provide money to Israel, but you got to think about something now. And I think I mentioned this on our last time.
Wait a second. What was voted down there? What was actually voted down? You're talking about
really
the 219?
Not only the budget for this defense spending in the war in Iran, but embedded in that was what I was ready to mention also was what used to be 224 on the House side, now 219, and on the Senate side, 1217, is to integrate our militaries, both technology, development, security, embed the two militaries together. And, oh, by the way, no oversight, and that was going to be law, if you will.
Right. That was voted down. That was actually, I didn't know that. All right.
Yeah, that was part of all of that is tied in together. Right. And so, we got to stay tuned on what's going on, and that is part of, my crusade now is, I thank you for having me on, as always, Randy, is to pass that word out, is what's going on. Yeah, is that $3.8 billion? Yes. Is our military suffering from that? Yeah, because that takes money away from our military and their healing. Listen, when you go to war, included in that funding of the war is the hospitalization, the care of our wounded warriors, and that is a lifetime mission, if you will, taking care of them. And so when you're giving Israel $3.8 billion and the other monies that we're giving them, that is taken away from our veterans. And oh, by the way, let me just add something else that members of Congress are trying to throw in there too. They're trying to get veterans and their disabilities to pit against one another. In other words, certain veterans that, let's say, for instance, have a disability rating, if you will, now we want to include another rating, but we want to take away from those that have already been rated and give that to others to find the funding. But yet we can find all the money we want to give Israel. Right. That is a disgrace, and that's what some of us veterans are following as well, how you sent us off the war, and then
well, we'd like to see the wars come to an end.
Well, let me just say this. We have to fight another war to get the disability benefits that we are truly deserved.
Right. Well, I'd just say this. I mean, I'd like to see all the no more wars. We don't need to fight these wars, and we won't need money for veterans, except for the ones that have already been injured. Let me ask you, Mr. Nixon, my fellow Americans. Let me ask you about the war, the other war, the war in Ukraine, the war, the proxy war, and for those of you who support that proxy war, out there, condolences to you waving the blue and yellow flag that your chief cheerleader died the other day, Lindsey Graham. So tell us about the Graham death to you, Garland, and what it means for the momentum of continuing this proxy war in Ukraine against Russia.
Well, the thing about Lindsey Graham was he was the face of evil, but you have other people who, you have a Lindsey Graham and you think about his snarling, angry face and his literally saying Trump is the best president because he's killing all the right people, right? A bloodthirsty lunatic. And that was his job. His job was to be the most over-the-top lunatic that you could ever imagine. And I always felt like part of it was so that other people could sound more reasonable when they're less than, it's like if Charles Manson is there, then somebody who's a little less than Charles Manson starts to look a little better. And he was effectively Congress's version of Charles Manson, I think. But here's the bottom line, sadly, I look at it like this. Ukraine is the Democrats' official war. Right? Democrats, your party started this war, so you're supposed to start your party and support your party, and you're supposed to believe the propaganda on this war, and you're supposed to say, yes, this is the good war because the Democrats started it, and then the Republicans start their war, and they say, no, that's the bad war, this is the good war. But they're always going to have you supporting a war. You're where you're properly supposed to be, you're in your corner, be it the fake left or the fake right, and they've got a war for you to support your war. You don't have to support the other guy's war because they got half of the people supporting one war and half the people supporting another war. And no matter how many times they lie us into a war, no matter how many times, generally 5 to 8 years after that war is over, people say, hey, I think I was lied to. Maybe there were no weapons of mass destruction. Maybe that Gulf of Tonkin incident was a false flag. 5 to 8 years later, 10 years later, everybody knows it was a lie. But when the war is going on, the suckers bite the hook, And so now, I got to add this. This is critical. Everywhere you look on a New York City bus, there's blue and yellow. Go to Walmart, the colors of the Ukraine flag. Go to Amazon, and where you click for add to cart or whatever, the colors of the Ukraine flag. It reminds me of when they put up this thing for terrorism. It was a color-coded thing that red meant terrorism and green meant no terrorism, right? When you see something that had every corporation, every powerful entity, every oligarch supports, which is the Ukraine conflict, so much so that they're putting that blue and yellow propaganda everywhere. That is the clearest sign that it is an operation and that you're being snookered. But no matter what, there's a certain group of people who will just never accept that they've been had.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one group that is not being snookered by this, and that's the Eisenhower Media Network. Am I right, Chief? And as you look at this war going into this 5th year, it started by the West, NATO going back to 2014. Can you tell me one good thing? Because you got people out there that are Democrats waving the blue and yellow flags, or I see the no NATO signs at the King's March and all of that. What? Tell me one good example of what NATO has done since 1991, 1992. One example. Dennis? He was just on. Well, I'll ask you the same question there while he's getting back on, and I'll ask you.
The thing about NATO, if you look at what it is, there's two things, and that is, look at the countries that are in NATO and ask, are they better off because of NATO? It's like the guy that gets a new girlfriend and you see him 6 months later and he's like strung out on meth. He's lost his job, and you're like, I just don't think maybe she's the right one for you. She's dragging you down, buddy, or the other way around, which I always bring at this. I had a cousin who was an alcoholic and going nowhere, and he met this really nice girl and she turned his life around. So the proof is in the pudding, right? Bottom line is this: is NATO better off? The NATO countries are shot to hell right now. Their economies are blown up. They're on the verge of war with Russia and getting nuked. I mean, NATO is a disaster. Right. And the only thing that the leaders of NATO can do, the Trump and the neocons, is go to an already impoverished Europe and say, we need more money, suckers. And the leaders of Europe are like, yeah, why would we spend money on, I don't know, healthcare or things like that when we could buy more weapons? Why would we spend money on saving lives when we could spend money on taking lives? NATO is a disastrous, warmongering, murderous, money extraction, pile of corruption.
Right. And
hey, Randy, I'm back now. It seems like every time I get ready to talk, I get knocked off. But let me just—I think you were coming to me when we were talking about Ukraine.
about Eisenhower Media Network and your position on
this. When you talk about that for your audience, I'll just go back to 2023. We took out another full-page ad in the New York Times, and it said the U.S. should be a force for peace. And if your audience can go back and Google that and take a look at that, then we talk about how we were promoting that war. As I got knocked off again, you were talking about that. We promoted that war. And once again, based on, as Garland was mentioning earlier, it's about imperialism and it's about capitalism because, as I stated earlier, the control of the resources in Russia, the grain in both Russia and Ukraine, to bring them into our capitalist society so that our oligarchs could utilize all that and become richer. Let me just mention something else, too. As I stated earlier, I speak from a military perspective of this. And in all these wars that we just talked about, and something that Garland mentioned earlier about these wars in the line, we always have to find a boogeyman to justify them. Well, it'd be radical Islam, communism, as Garland mentioned, and also socialism. We always have to have a boogeyman to justify these wars. And then from a military perspective, what got me into this crusade again, the U.S. military men and women of our armed forces are used as pawns in these conflicts, as alluded by General Smedley Butler.
Right. Yeah, Garland, you have spent a lot more time. I was there for a week in Donetsk and 2 weeks in Moscow 3 years ago. You spent a lot more time now than I have. And I heard you had Scott on the other day talking about I couldn't go back to that city again in Donetsk because the drone attacks there have intensified, but they're only hitting civilians right now. They're not going after military targets. They're going after trains. They're going after, just civilian. When I was there, it was all civilian targets. And is this like the last Hail Mary that they have, throwing drones into civilian populated areas? And
well, you know what? Look at Afghanistan when they were hitting hospitals, right? Look at what Israel's doing. It hits 99% civilian targets, right? If you look at the history of NATO, if you look at the history of the U.S., what they did literally in, Cambodia, when they were bombing Cambodia, a bunch of rice villages, and what's his name? The crazy guy who was in charge said, anything that moves on anything that, anything that flies on anything that moves. And anyway, in other words, let's get every plane we have in the air and bomb anything you see, right? Indiscriminately. That is what they're doing there. Is the history of what NATO's done. It's the history of what the U.S. empire has done. It's the history of what the empire and colonialism. This is it's hard for Americans to really accept the brutality of colonialism and the fact that the United States right now is the chief of colonialism. It is I'll put it like this. The Brits feel like that old song, you got the brawn, I got the brains, let's make some money. That's the way the Brits view the United States. You guys are the apes, the gorillas. You guys are the knuckle draggers. We go in and we do the talking, and then we call you in there and you smash everything to pieces. And that's the way, that's the United States part of this whole colonial thing. And Americans are still running around saying, we're a force for good. We're going around the United States, America, we're there to fix everything. We're still stuck in this just absurd paradigm where Americans can't accept that. It's like this. Dad's a serial killer. I know it's hard to accept it, but your father's a serial killer. If your mom says, I got bad news, Dad's a serial killer, they just locked him up. The United States is in denial. People are in denial that Dad's a serial killer.
Well, all right, Dennis, I'm going to play something for you first, and that's very well said, and it leads me because we're talking about the Brits calling the shots. But we're calling the shots there right now. I think we have been, at least for the last, 12 years, right? Since 2014. I want to play this because there was almost peace there, and the person that was the emissary for the U.S. and NATO, Boris Johnson, of course, scuttled it. And here's what he said recently, a couple of months ago, but he came right out and told the truth about what this war is about. Here.
We are, let's face it, we're waging a proxy war. We're waging a proxy war, but we're not giving our proxies the ability to do the job. And for years and years now, we've been allowing them to fight with one hand tied behind their backs, and it has been cruel. It has been cruel, and we need now to give them what they need.
Who's been cruel there? The Brits have been cruel for scuttling that plan that would have brought peace, Dennis.
Well, let me just add something else to what Garland said, and I will jump to that in proxy war. Let me just say this. When it comes to Britain, now the United Kingdom, whatever, we, the United States, we're the child of the UK, of Britain. Mm-hmm. And why do I say that, Dennis? Because it's almost like me and a lot of my friends. We didn't make it to the NBA. We didn't get the basketball scholarship. So we lived our dream through our kids, helping them get to the NBA, helping them get that basketball scholarship. Well, that's what we are to Britain. We're fulfilling their continued dream of colonization. Likewise, in the Middle East as well, the Ashkenazi Jews that have come from Europe over to the Middle East, colonization. As Garland mentioned something else about a particular war. The Ukraine war was the Democrats' war. Likewise, Gaza. You had Joe Biden saying, if there was not an Israel, we would have had to create one. I'm just paraphrasing. Mm-hmm. Okay? So when we say the Brits, we are their child. We are their offspring. We are living their continued dream. Now, when you talk about a proxy war, I've been on record, go back even on your show, of saying this has always been a proxy war, the war between Russia and Ukraine. Why? Because we want to, as part of the Cold War, weaken Russia for our continual imperialism and capitalism of the world. And let me just mention something else stated earlier, too, when we talk about these excuses. When you, I'm trying to think of his name, the Deputy Chief of Staff, our good friend over in the White House.
Stephen Miller.
Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller answered another question for us and answered Garland's question, too. This is something in regards to the Iraq war that we did, and in all these wars. It's called anticipatory self-defense, something that we borrowed from the Likud party of Israel. That means that if we think they're going to attack us, if we think possibly they could attack us in the future, we're going to attack them first. And if you look in my book, Daily Betrayal, it's called Anticipatory Self-Defense. And that was the Bush doctrine and gave them rationale to attack Iraq. Why? Because of the fact there could be mushroom clouds, as some of them stated in the past, over the Washington Capitol if we didn't attack Iraq. Right. If we don't attack Syria, there could be chemical weapons introduced in the United States of America. And then finally, if we don't attack Iran, they could have a nuclear weapon to, guess what? To attack us.
Right. Well, it feels like there's a mushroom cloud in New York City right now coming in from Canada.
And likewise here in D.C. I'm
right.
sure Garland
yeah. Oh, yeah.
There.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's worse than Mount St. Helens.
You can't even see the monument in some cases.
Wow. Well, which one? The Lincoln? Washington Monument.
Big
oh,
Washington
that's a
Monument.
oh, okay. Yes, my favorite slaveholder. So, let's go back to you, Garland. Who? I actually want to ask you. We're talking about England and Germany and France, all these countries that are dilapidated, dying, or have died empires. That for them, Russia is their only way to get back on their feet. Is to get their resources. Is that what it really is all about? Because they don't have any colonies anymore, and what do they got? Who wants to go there as a visitor, as a tourist?
Well, and additionally, this has been going on for centuries, particularly with the British. The concept of the Earth's middle island, the concept that you've got this gigantic expanse of land between Europe and Asia, and that is Russia, and that it's loaded with natural resources, and it's always been a thorn in the bushes. In the British side, because they felt like if it weren't for them, we could rule the entire stinking world, and the Russians just won't get out of the way and let us do it, which they won't. And so what they do is they come up with various reasons, war after war. In fact, what's interesting is they're making this argument that they will be attacked by the Russians, that the Russians are planning on attacking them. Well, wait a minute. I could go to King Charles of Sweden, that's Western Europe, Napoleon, Hitler. I mean, I could go on and on and on, time after time after time. The Crimean War, where Western Europe attacks Russia. Russia never attacks Western Europe. But we're to believe that this time, the Russians, who are saying, we don't want war with Western Europe, we would like to have some kind of a new security architecture so we don't go to war. They're the ones that want war. The ones that are saying they don't want war. The ones who, in my opinion, did what any superpower in the world that would do. In fact, the word Ukraine literally means borderland. If you go to the border of a superpower and start building up offensive weaponry on its border, that superpower is going to react violently. And if I were the president, people are like Putin, if I were the president of Russia or any other country and another superpower starts building up weapons on my border, I'm knocking it off. This is not about Putin. If Vladimir Putin had never been born, whoever was in charge of Russia, I can guarantee you this, would go to war and knock Ukraine out of the way. And that's the reality of it. But, Americans, A, we don't know history, and B, we don't know the present either, so we just believe propaganda.
I mean, I think the people that have those blue and yellow flags, some people that I know, don't even know that it started with the Maidan coup in February of 2014. They don't even know anything about it. This was a neocon project. And it's really frustrating that they blindly support Zelensky. And Dennis, you must know how corrupt the Zelensky scandal, how corrupt he is, and the scandals keep growing exponentially on that.
Well, come on. Yeah, we know that, but that doesn't make a difference in our objectives and goals. All you have to do is take a look in Syria right now, where all the years that Al-Qaeda was the enemy, and now we have a former leader of Al-Qaeda that's, guess what? That's leading Syria. And oh, by the way, President Trump met with that person during the NATO summit. Right. So that doesn't mean anything just because it's happening. But let me just mention something else.
Got a nice suit, that guy. Go ahead.
Well, he did have a nice suit, yeah. But let me just mention this also when you talk about something Garland said also, is that, listen, I've been on record saying this. I think I said it on your show, but when I mentioned about the New York Times paid ad we did in 2003, one of the things I said from that was that we have no empathy for others' security. And so, as Garland alluded to, in regards to Ukraine, if they join NATO, you know what that allows them to do? To have nuclear weapons on the doorsteps of Russia with a very quick response time if a nuclear weapon, was launched at them. Secondly, when I said we have no empathy for other security needs, let me remind you of the missile crisis, the Russian missile crisis, I think in the 1960s and so forth, with Kennedy. If Russia had, and we already using Cuba as an example, lying about that. But let's say, for instance, if Russia or China had nuclear weapons based in Mexico or Canada, or if they had fighter planes stationed in Cuba or Canada, we would lose our minds. We would be going crazy. Guess what? We would be ready to use anticipatory self-defense because they're based in Russia, in Canada, or they're based in Mexico. Oh, we better attack now. Well, that's what Russia was against when we were talking about Ukraine becoming a part of NATO, or Liet, putting that threat against their front doors.
Right. Well, they also have a lot of labs. I know British and U.S. labs. Just quickly, I want to ask another question, Garland. These labs, these bio labs, there, are they? Do they want don't want the word to come out about how sinister, pernicious these labs are?
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, look, the United States has been involved. I mean, you can go back. There's a tremendous amount of evidence that the United States used biological weapons against the Korean War. In fact, what most people don't know is the term brainwashed was as a result of that. During the Korean War, a number of U.S. pilots felt bad, and some of them defected to the China, and they said, look, we used biological weapons against Korean people, and we feel terrible about it. And that's when the CIA or whoever they were came up with the term. They said, these people have been brainwashed. So it's not new that the U.S. has used biological weapons. In fact, you could go to the Tuskegee experiment. You could go to the same way with the experiments in Guatemala that was just like the Tuskegee experiment. So using biological weapons has been something that the U.S. has done in the past. And certainly it seems pretty clear to me that there's these things are a pattern of colonial, another one of the violent patterns of colonial. Let's go all the way back to giving Native Americans blankets with diseases on them.
Smallpox, yes.
Exactly.
Right.
That's the same thing.
Right, exactly.
It's just a different delivery method now.
So let's circle back to Iran. I want to answer from both of you. It's my belief, my hypothesis. This is not just about Iran. It's really about undermining China and undermining Russia, and that's the reason. Whatever Trump says, that's the reason why we're not leaving, because he can't afford to leave that unscathed. He's got to do something to get that straight open and destroy everything in sight and undermine their connection with BRICS and everything else of that order. Dennis, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first, and I disagree with you. Now, why do I say that? It's because of the fact we all know it has nothing to do with China or Russia. It has all to do with Israel. This war was based on Israel, as I've mentioned in Deadly Betrayal. Listen, now some have come out, something I've been saying for decades. Now you have Hillary Clinton saying, well, Bibi Netanyahu has always wanted us to attack Iran. You have former Secretary of Defense Bob Gates, who said, yeah, during my time with Obama, Bibi Netanyahu wanted us to attack Iran. I can also tell you, this is a fact too. Before we invaded Iraq, when the plan was being made up by the neocons who was in the Pentagon and so forth, Bibi Netanyahu wanted us to attack Iran first. Right. Why did he want us to attack Iran first? Because he saw that as their biggest threat of their, colonialism, bringing the European culture to the Middle East by the Zionists. And so, no, this is all about Israel. Hold on. Yeah, but let me say this now. Now it is about Trump got talked into this, and now there's no way out. We're in a quagmire. It's not about China or Russia. It's about how do we get out of here. And now Iran, they're going to make us pay the price. They may not allow us to get out of it. And you know who's happy about that? Israel. Because if the war continues, that's good for Bibi. And so it's not about China. It's not about Russia. Well, I can tell you what it's about. They are happy, though, that we're bogged down as though we in this, guess what? This proxy war between Russia, China, and the United States of America, as we have Russia bogged down in Ukraine, we're now bogged down.
All right. Well, yeah. Well, I'm talking about the long-range plan here, and look, it wasn't Israel that asked us to go back to war here. Trump has done it unilaterally, broken this MOU, that piece of paper that's worth the price that it's written on. So I'll ask you the same question, Garland. Is there any nuances that you can find in what Dennis just laid out?
No. I think I would agree with what he's saying. I don't have anything to add to that. I think he's on the money.
Right. So, but at the same time, we are at war with Russia, and we're threatening China right now. And that speech seemed like an appetizer for some more bellicose talk from Trump. I mean, they are blowing us away economically. And it's just like it may be in the minds of the power elite in this country that it's an existential threat to our global, superpower status.
Well, I would put. No, go ahead.
You go ahead.
I would put it a little different too. And that is this. We are at war with modernity. Right, the United States is at war. What? Oh, we've got to build up our weapons in the in the Asia Pacific so we can be ready to fight China. Why? Because China's rising. Oh, we've got to stop. Why are we trying to stop? Because Russia's rising. Oh, Iran, they're growing more powerful. We can't have that. What's happening is we are an empire, and here's the way the world works: countries grow, and countries get weaker. People get older and weaker, and people get younger and stronger. The world is changing, and other powers are rising. And the United States is like a drowning man who's reaching in all directions, grabbing frantically for anything to pull himself out. And we are in a worldwide quagmire. And what is the definition actually of a quagmire? It's like being in a quicksand. In a quagmire, the harder you fight, the quicker it pulls you down. And that's what we are. As we try to fight against Russia and China and Iran and in South America, and Cuba, Mexico's acting up. What about Brazil? As we spread ourselves out, what we find is this: the harder we fight against modernity, against rising powers in the world, the faster our empire, starts to come apart.
That's happened
Let
to
me just
Athens.
add what Garland said.
By the way, before you do, I must say, I'm just playing the devil's advocate. I happen to agree with both of you. All right, I'm joking.
All right.
No, go ahead.
Let me just add, and being the historian you are, Randy, you'll understand this more so than I will. Just think about Richard Nixon going over to China, and we went over there to bringing them into the so-called world, the free world, and introducing them to capitalism. Why? We wanted to use them for their cheap labor. Now all of a sudden, the Chinese said, "Hey, wait a minute, this capitalism not bad. We can do a lot of good stuff with this. So let's go quasi-capitalism." And they started growing. We can make things for the world. They got too big for their britches. We created them, and as Garland said, we didn't like it because they began to start to be a powerhouse. And let me remind you of this. China used to be non-interventionist. That was part of their policy. But now we cause them to build up their military and their navy because, as Garland alluded to, because they started getting powerful. And so we created them, and we don't like the fact that they have become originally, for cheap labor, they were a partner. And then as they become hey, we can really build a lot of stuff. We can spread. We can go and sell our stuff and help other countries. They became an adversary. And then as they got more powerful, now guess what? They're an enemy. And I'll leave you with this. Has China ever attacked us? Has Israel ever, has Iraq ever attacked us? Did Iran ever attack us? Did Syria ever attack us? Did Cuba ever attack us when we try to pretend, they're a threat to us? We always have to have a boogeyman for our power.
Right.
And that's what it all boils down to, unfortunately. We created China, and now we've made it. They never said they were our enemy. We made them the enemy because of the fact they've become so powerful.
Yeah. Garland, let's stick with that for a minute. Going back to Trump's speech, he said that America is the strongest country and as strong as it's ever been in its history, and its economy is at its apex, stronger than the last 250 years. Was that a bunch of smoke?
Well, that's what Trump did. I would argue that's what he has to do. That is an indicative. That is indicative of the weakness. As we get weaker, look in the animal world, and what do animals do when they are surrounded? You'll see a bird, they puff, when they feel frightened, when they feel threatened, they'll puff up their feathers to try to make themselves look bigger than they are to frighten their enemies, right? And all Trump's doing is, as the world looks at him and says, "Hey, man, my life's crap." As the American citizens say, we're unhappy with our financial circumstances, Trump says they're great. Yeah, one interesting thing though, I'm going to throw into that. When the Biden team were running, Kamala, and people were saying, "Man, the economy's crap," and you remember what Kamala Harris and the Democrats said? "Oh, it's wonderful. In fact, we've got a website. Just go to our website. We've got graphs and pie charts and all kind of stuff. Look at that, and you'll know how great it is." And everybody said, "These people are lunatics. They're going to lose to Trump because people are suffering." And their answer is, "No, you're not. It's just great." Well, what we're seeing now is that was not just the Biden team that does that. That was what the empire has to do. The empire can't accept, they can't listen to the American people that are saying we're suffering. They have to say, Trump the same, Biden the same. No, 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 no. You poor little stupid underlings, the hoi polloi, the great unwashed, you just don't understand how good you've got it. Let me give you some statistics to tell you how wonderful it is. Ignore the fact that you're living in your car and you don't have food. Your dog's starving because you don't have dog food. Ignore all of that. I've got these numbers here that'll show just how wonderful things are. That's where we are. It's Biden, Trump, whoever the mouthpiece for the empire is now. They've got to sing the same from the same sheet of music.
I'm starving because my dog does have good food. All right, so we have a few minutes left here. You have any closing remarks? You got a minute and a half apiece, and give us your website. It's EisenhowerMediaNetwork.com, right, Dennis? And your book is Deadly Betrayal, that you can get at Or Books or the other one. All right, Dennis, we lost him again. All right, Dennis keeps fading in and out, man. We're gonna have to get a doppelganger for him. He muted himself. All right, so let's go to you.
I'm back again.
Oh, there we
It's
go.
too late, man.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No.
You got a minute.
Man, I didn't hear the last few words, but I will just tell you the question that I heard when you asked Garland about the speech and how things are going well. I look at myself. I live an okay life, okay? But before this war started with Iran, last year I think I was paying $60 to fill up my tank. Then it actually went up to $100 during the height of the war. And now, when I heard this war was starting up again, I said, I better go fill up. Up until then, it was costing me about $60. When I filled up, today is Friday, on Wednesday, it cost me $80.
Wow.
But I went to the grocery store, I'm a creature of habit. I buy the same thing. That was costing me a week or so ago about $65. It cost me $79 this time. I'm a creature of habit. Now, why do I say that? I'm living okay, and it's hurting me. Can you imagine how it's hurting poor people? And then finally, you hear Trump talk about the stock market. Forget the stock market. Poor people don't care about the stock market. When you talk about the middle class, you're talking about, your 401k plan. Poor people don't have a 401k plan. They're living from day to day, don't even think about retirement because they don't have a retirement plan. They're just trying to survive from day to day.
Right. All right, we got 1 minute there. And Garland, people can see your website. You have a website. You have your Garland Nixon on X and YouTube. It's Garland Nixon and WPFW. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, I'm 100%. I think we're saying the same thing. We're on the same track, and the reason that we're all three on the same track is because it's so glaringly obvious now. And the thing I would say to the people out in listener land is this: you got to get away from that. Oh, if only the Democrats were in power, or if you're a Republican, if only the Republicans have power. Like, this is not a partisan thing. This is way past the partisan issue.
Right. Totally. I want to thank both of you guys, and it went by so quickly. We'll do this again in the next couple of weeks, okay? Because you guys make a nice couple on this show. It's like not Abbott and Costello. Let me think of what could I? Spencer Trade? No, I don't know. But you guys are great together. It really complement each other, and I thank you so much. And people do pay attention to their work because it's really critical and valuable.